French Prime Minister François Bayrou lost a confidence vote in Parliament on Monday, ending his 9 months in office during a period of chaos in the country's parliament, the National Assembly. In a vote in the National Assembly, 364 deputies voted in favour of no confidence in the government, while just 194 voted expressing their confidence. Bayrou will submit his resignation to President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday. He was the fourth Prime Minister in 2 years under President Emmanuel Macron, whose second term in office has been overshadowed by political instability. Bayrou became the first premier in the history of modern France to be ousted in a confidence vote rather than a no confidence vote. All right, DD India's Akshay Dongre joins us from New Delhi. Akshay, we've given a sense of the political turmoil in France. What next is to be expected?
Well, as of now, there are now arrangements being made inside the French government to replace Prime Minister Bayrou after his ousting after the confidence motion, and now we have the defense minister, the finance minister, the labor minister, all running for the top post. However, the crisis remains as the 3.6 trillion euros worth of national debt that was at the center stage of the sweeping reforms that were being made by the former prime minister. That the problem still remains, and as of now, the crisis that has been going on as far as this national debt crisis is concerned, that still remains to be answered by any politician inside France. So the situation is complicated as of now. No party has a clear majority. The present government that was running under Prime Minister Bayrou was also running on coalition, and similar kind of permutations and combinations will have to be made as far as forming the government, or rather making the government survive for the next few months are concerned. However, what we are seeing in France is a collapse of the government, and we can expect the opposition parties to mount more pressure on the government. However, the biggest problem that was the debt, that is a question that still remains, and the French politicians are still presently are scrambling to to save the government that is in power. And now whether there will be some sort of changes in alliance, shift in alliance, and whether the parties will move towards the more right parties of Ms. Le Pen or not, that is a big question. But the situation in France, that still remains quite complicated, and it remains unclear that whether it will be the defense minister that is the top choice for President Emmanuel Macron, or the other former ministers of the government, including the finance minister, whether they'll be able to cling to power. That's a big question. And how they will solve the national debt crisis, that is still far from being answered, because the latest attempt that has been done to solve the situation has only complicated the matters more, and has put a question mark on the survivability of the government as we know it in France. Back to you, Preeti.
All right, Akshay, now Bayrou is the fourth Prime Minister to have resigned in 2 years under President Emmanuel Macron. Also, when we talk of this political instability, what is the future that awaits President Macron, because his tenure has been marked by this political instability? What next for President Macron?
Well, that's a million-dollar question, Preeti, because with the kind of instability, it seems that President Macron will also be under a lot of pressure from the opposition, at least, with sort of providing a more stable government to the French people. We have seen that the last attempt that was made to provide a stable government and bring some major changes was when snap elections were announced in 2024, after which you have rightly said that it is the second resignation in a matter of years, and what we are seeing is a continuous political instability that is that's just what we are seeing right now is a culmination of the instability that has prevailed for the last 2 years. And now with the situation getting more and more complicated, the question mark will also be on the legitimacy of French President Emmanuel Macron, and how he's going to continue with his own position as well as with the government. And if in case the government gets into further collapse, it will also put more and more pressure on President Emmanuel Macron and will give more power to the opposition parties to call for major political changes, as well as sweeping financial reforms that have been at the center stage of this entire crisis.
All right, Akshay, thank you so much for joining in with those details. That was our correspondent Akshay Dongre telling us more about the political instability in France and how do we expect the days ahead to pan out.